Uh, I say that as someone who teaches these people every day. They're not waiting for us. If we don't give them what they want, they create it. And they go on. And they have a life. And they have a life, a relationship, and an appreciation for that stuff we call art that is slightly different from the experiences that we have and that we refer to. How will we compete in this 21st century? It's a question, and I think it's a doggone good one. I'll show you just briefly. You heard a little bit about the kind of work. Unfortunately, I have a good strong voice, so I don't need that thing. Comes from years of teaching. Unfortunately, I don't have quilts, and I sort of hate that because I am my mother's daughter, and my mother is the greatest inspiration for my quilt making. Well, I'll go back to I found that I'm fascinated with buttons, and part of it goes back to when I was a little girl and I was a tomboy and I loved to shoot marbles, and my mother thought she could stop me from shooting marbles by not allowing me to wear pants, and she didn't realize that all that did was force me to become skillful standing up, and I still won all the marbles from the boys in the neighborhood. One of the things she would do is, if I would promise that I would not play marbles for 2 weeks, she would let me play with her button tins. So I developed this very personal, intimate relationship with her buttons and forgot about it, I thought. And then 30 years later, they found them. They came back. And I found these properties in buttons. I was looking at these. I started collecting them. And I didn't know what I was going to do with them. But I knew at some point. And I started making, I love to eat. I'm also my father's daughter. And my father was an excellent cook. And he didn't believe in buying anything. If we wanted candy, he made it. If we wanted popsicles, he made them. So this whole idea of making food and what that instilled in me too is because he did it with such love that I still associate loving people with providing good food for them. Now I don't like to cook. Don't line up to come to the house because, but I will make sure good food is there. But I started seeing properties in these buttons, and they started looking like cookies. So I made my little cookies. These are all buttons, and I made my little grape lollipops. And I always loved photography. I thought that, one way to get around this whole thing of race and skin color, just make real colored people. So I did, purple, I made these people these ridiculous colors. What's interesting is that innate beauty in their features and their poses and whatever, it comes through anyway. So it shows how, if something's superficial, it's superficial. And I love the buttons. The buttons became real materials for me. And having initially been trained as a painter, I just did the same things with buttons I would have done with paint. Different properties, but the principles, the same principles apply. And I love that circle because it just reminds me of those old records we used to play. And I'll just go through these quick. Love Billie Holiday. Sorry they're so blurred because the candy is luscious looking. But and I thought that was such a smooth, rich, dark chocolate was just such a luscious metaphor for her sound. Yeah. And then one of my boys was Manuel. When I was in school, I just liked the radical nature of his thinking And I loved his innate understanding of American film. So I ripped him off. And I did this piece called Blink. And we were talking about seeing earlier. You know, what happens when you blink? You see an image, you blink. That image often changes. So this whole idea of masking and having these sort of spontaneous urges and ideas and perceptions come up, but you know, we still wear masks. And masking is just such a powerful part of the African American experience because we get up out of the bed one person, but by the time we cross the threshold of that home door and go out into the world, we have to become another person. And then when we get to work, we have to become another person. And then if we really want that promotion, we have to become another person. And we're sort of all these different people until we hit that door seal that says, okay, homeland. And you can go back to the real person. So we've really mastered wearing a mask. So that's a very powerful metaphor in a lot of my work. And this is sort of my blue lady, who's sort of a signature. She was the first colored woman that I did. And she really evolved out of, by the way, it's amazing how people have taken to her. L'Oreal has used this image in one of their cosmetic ads. It's been on the cover of a record CD. It's amazing. And the interpretations that they bring to it are all very different from the one that I intended, which was just to talk about the superficiality of things that we make very important decisions about people, the relationship between those superficialities and the conclusions that we make about people, and how, despite those superficialities, how certain innate beauty comes through. L'Oreal thought they got it, and they were close. They were on the right bus. But there was also this other layer of a metaphor for that crossing over. A kind of forced travel that subsequently culminated in the creation of something that is wonderful, this sound, this thing that was called blues, and that transitioned into jazz, and guess what? That thing went back across the waters. And so that completion of that cycle, I said, what a powerful thing, this blueness of people. And that's what she represents for me. That's sort of the end. But once again, I'll just reiterate that as an artist, part of what's happening now with the creative urge that I sense within the art community, and when I say art community in this context, I'm talking about the community of artists, the community of people that are making it, is part of that creative process for us now is looking for ways to create and invent our own museums.